Welcome to 64 video blog number 2. My name is Dick Goodwin, and this is a video blog about living with cancer. If you're interested in seeing video blog number 1, you can find it on YouTube, and simply go to YouTube and type in 64 video blog, and you'll find both of these blogs at that site. The first time that I really had any indication that I might have something cancerous was after I had a colonoscopy in July of 2009. The doctor came out and said that I had a precancerous section, but that it was too big for him to remove. He had removed some polyps, but this was way too big for him to remove, and I needed to find a surgeon to remove that section of my colon. I inquired, my wife was with me, we inquired about whether this was urgent to get this out or had a little time, as I wanted to. I had been on the planning committee for my high school class reunion, 45th class reunion, and I wanted to attend that, and that was upcoming August 1st. If I could, I could, but if this was urgent, I would go ahead and get the surgery done. And he said, well, soon, better sooner than later, and wasn't very specific about it. So I decided to discuss it with my primary care physician, Dr. Kristen Stabell, who I respect a lot and love. She's a great physician. She's been great for me, and so I was very happy to be able to see her. And I had hoped that she could give me a recommendation, because I would really feel like I didn't just want to call a hospital and say, hey, if you got somebody there that can cut on my colon and take this section out, you know, I felt it would be much better to have a doctor to call to try to get an appointment with. So fortunately, Dr. Stabell recommended Dr. Hannah Ha at Christian Hospital Northeast, somebody that she had worked with before. So I had an appointment to go meet face-to-face with Dr. Hannah Ha. I immediately liked her a lot. She seemed like she really knew what she was doing. She talked to us about the whole process. She said she expected it to take 2 to 3 hours, but you could never know in these things. And she set the date for August 26th for the surgery. So I was happy. That allowed me to go to my class reunion and all that kind of stuff. So when August 26th came, my wife and I arrived at the hospital and were waiting. They prepared me for surgery, and Dr. Ha and the chief nurse in the operating room came out to talk to me. And Dr. Ha talked again. She said, you know, this should take 2 to 3 hours, but we never know. And so, and then she asked me a question which I thought was a little strange for a doctor to ask. She said, do you believe in God? And I said, well, yes. So she said, well, let's hold hands and say a little prayer. And she prayed, of course, that he would guide her hands and this would turn out well. And I just thought it was a very nice gesture on her part. And it sort of increased my comfort level, although I was very comfortable with her already. But that was, I thought, a very nice thing for her to do. So I went into surgery, and they found that this was not precancerous, it was full-blown cancer, and that it had moved out of my colon. And what they wanted to try to do was to scrape away the cancer from the section that it had moved to. So it became a very complicated surgery, and what it originally was going to be a 2 or 3 hour surgery became a 7.5 hour surgery. So but they came out and apprised my wife that no, nothing, my life wasn't endangered. It was just taking a lot longer than they thought, and it was a very meticulous surgery. So when they brought me out, I was doing pretty well. Sent me to a room, and I was in the room a day or two, and of course I have this huge incision in my gut, and as they were dressing it one day, one of the first couple of days, my wife thought that it looked kind of red and inflamed, and when the Dr. Ha took a look at it, she concluded that it was infected, and in fact the skin around it, some of the bacteria was eating at the skin around it. So she took me back into surgery and had to undo the close-up of the incision and open me back up and tried to clean out as much as she could of the infection. And she had to deal with the skin on the outside that looked like it was just dying from the bacteria. And so by the time that I got out of that process, I had a pretty huge incision compared to what you would normally come out of a surgery with. In fact, they were using a wound vac to try to heal the surgery. So it was really major, and I had a lot of complications. I developed pneumonia. I had an infection in both kidneys, infection and my bladder, known as Pseudomonas, which is generally considered a hospital-induced infection. So I was really a sick puppy, and they were throwing every antibiotic at me that they knew of. And I was in the hospital a total of 29 days. 20 of those were spent in intensive care unit. And while in there, they inserted drainage tubes because I also had fluid buildup behind my lungs. So they had to try to drain that off, and as I recall, they weren't really sure what it was when they were draining it off. Maybe they found out by now, but it doesn't matter to me. But with all the antibiotics, and I finally got over the pneumonia, got over the kidney infections, and started feeling better. So of those 29 days I was in the hospital, 20 of them were in intensive care. So without giving you too many gory details, suffice it to say that I had a really rough hospitalization. In fact, one day, but to my benefit for me, much of the time I was out of it. They either had me drugged, or I was sleeping, or I was, so one day a doctor came in and said, "Wow, you've really had a rough time, haven't you?" And I thought, well, I don't know. It hadn't been that bad. And then my wife about jumped out of her chair because she had seen it all and knew that I had had a very rough time. So I take her word for it. It was a very rough time, even though much of the time I was either asleep or drugged and out of it. So my hospitalization experience was a long one. That's the longest I've ever been in the hospital. And I'm sure there were some people probably lucky to have survived the whole thing. And so now, after I'm out of the hospital, I need to start making appointments with oncologists, surgeons, just to see what kind of treatment protocol that we can develop for the cancer. So I'm not going to try to get started into that today because it could be too long. So I will just sign off, and I will sign off with my little song, and will say to you, give me your answer, fill in a form. Hopefully I will see you in another week with blog number 3, and we will talk about what happened after I left the hospital, that process, because it became interesting in itself. The fact is that I have a pre-existing condition that limited some of my options. So we'll talk about that pre-existing condition next time, and then we will talk about what my treatment options, what I couldn't do and what I could do finally. They found something they could do finally. We'll talk about that also down the road. So have a good week. If you would like to be removed from receiving this blog, email me at goodwin46@charter.net. If you know anybody who would like to be added, the same address. So have a good day, and I will talk to you next time.